Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
It's time for the Bonnie Sher Show, a whirlwind of wit, wisdom, celebrity, and the boomer life. With a little bit of this and a lot of that and so much more you don't want to miss, here's Bonnie.
Well, hello there and welcome, my friends old and new. And thank you for tuning in and joining in on the chat. First, I'd like to thank Wayne Cobham for my super duper theme song. Cool, Wayne, thanks. I am Bonnie Sher, and I will be your host today through the world of boomers, through the world of entertainment, through the type 1 diabetes community. And today's guests are a boomer. She's so much more. However, she is a boomer. She's an author. She's a coach. And her name is Riva Greenberg. And we have with us today Daniele Hargenrader. Rader, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I'll find out, who is a member of the T1D community. And she will be my co-host in that segment today. If you have a question or a comment, please follow the hashtag BSherRadio. That's the # BSHERRADIO on Twitter. Now settle in and please say hello to my first guest, Riva Greenberg.
Bonnie.
Hello, Riva. This is wonderful. I have like little goosebumps. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. And I'm so, what can I say? I gush and bubble when I'm excited. Okay, all cool leaves me, so I'm in gush and bubble mode, but I'm going to try and work with this. As I have been reading you and the different books which you have already published, I know you have some other things in the work, did you begin your writing in 2007, or was that when you were first published? How did your writing come about?
Well, actually, I think I've been writing my whole life. I mean, I'm one of those who kept journals as a teenager and wrote down every thought I had and every emotion. So I always had a sense from a young age that writing was my field in some way. And actually, at the beginning of my career, I was an advertising writer.
That's what I wanted to know. Yeah.
Yes. So, I think it's a talent I have. And then, of course, I think I learned along the way on the job. And it was, I guess you're correct. It wasn't 2000. Well, actually, it was earlier than 2007 that I actually wrote my first published book, which was called The ABCs of Loving Yourself. And it was a very small book published by Rand. No. That's my first diabetes book, but my second published book.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute then. I was listening to ABC and I was already a D, E, and F apparently. I'm sorry.
No. Well, my very first published book was called The ABCs of Loving Yourself, and it was published by Random House in Australia. It's a very small book with somebody else's illustrations, and each letter had one line of text. And it wasn't about diabetes at all. It was just about loving yourself. So that was really my first published book, I think 2004. And then in 2007, it was really my husband, I think, who had a brainstorm and said, now that you're working in diabetes, why don't you write The ABCs of Loving Yourself with Diabetes? So that's the book that you have. That was the first book I wrote about diabetes.
Now I get to do this. Okay. Now
you get to hold it up.
There we go. That way. This way. Here, how's that?
Perfect.
Most people respond that way, Riva. Let me just take a quick pause here. If there's anybody out there who has not yet seen Riva's books or has read Riva, Riva actually sent me 2 books, and this is the first one I picked up, and I had to pick up the phone and call Riva. I've been a diabetic now for 48 years, and I didn't think anybody else could possibly share these feelings and make it so okay, and make it so okay. So just a little shout out to you for making my life a little easier. So
thank you.
Thank you. So were you in the advertising? Now, you said until you got into diabetes. What was it that made you want to get out of being a writer in advertising and directing your life? And what was that moment like for you? What is it that you had intended for yourself? Did you know? Or was it really, some people can see and define their, I happen not to be one of those. I kind of just fall into things, but I don't know that that's how you did. You seem, and thank goodness for the husband who came up with the great idea. But all of this was your idea first, so let's go back to that. And if you
I'll
could
tell
give
you what happened.
Yeah, please.
I lost my job.
Oh, gee, I can't relate to that.
I was working at that time. I was working for a small communications consulting firm, and this was in the 90s, late 90s, 2001 actually, I think. And the company went bankrupt. And so, that was sort of one of the impetuses to say, I was 48 years old, and I liken that to my midlife crisis. So I lost my job. I was getting married that year. And so I went to a diabetes educator for the very first time after having had diabetes for 32 years to make sure that I could be as healthy as I could possibly be as long as I could be it. And so all those things together combined, and I thought, well, I'd always wanted to do something that helped people. Maybe it could be diabetes. So that was the impetus.
Well, I'm sorry about what created that impetus for you, but I so relate to what you're saying as I sit here. It's all right. So what's in your, now wait a minute, we haven't talked about the fact that you also do writing for the Huffington Post.
Yes, I have a pretty regular column about diabetes on the Huffington Post. And it's a great opportunity to really just write about what I want to. So I write about the experience of living with diabetes. I write about what's going on in research and devices and my own personal investigations and things like new devices, food. We all always want to know about food, all the things we have to do to manage this creature known as diabetes. So I do that. And I've written 2 other books. One is called 50 Diabetes Myths That Can Ruin Your Life. And the latest one is Diabetes Do's and How-To's, which are action steps to take care of yourself and your diabetes. Yes, that's the other one I sent you. Indeed. Because we give people constantly information about what to do. We all know we should normalize our weight. That means losing weight for a lot of us, eat healthier, go exercise. But who spends the time to really help people know exactly what they should do and how they should do it? And so that's what's in that book.
Gotcha. Well, this is what I will be starting later today because that's the plan. Do you think that doing this writing, let's put it this way, what has doing this writing and being a part of this community done for you?
That's a great question. Um, you know, it's really made me appreciative for what I have, because for me, this is very purposeful work. It makes me happy to get up and do something that's important to me every day, and to feel like I'm making a difference for people. That's extremely rewarding. I think that the people on the diabetes online community, you mentioned Danielle is one of them, are incredibly generous. And the bonds created online amongst us who have diabetes are very strong and very swiftly created. So it's a wonderful community, a very gracious and generous community, and and being so deep now in the work of diabetes and helping people with diabetes and helping healthcare providers understand there are other ways to work with patients than just tell them what to do, but to actually connect with them and support them. Uh, all of this has it probably has enhanced my management of my own diabetes, and it's just created a very fulfilling life. I mean, I wonder, do you feel the same? I mean, you're working in diabetes in this respect. Would you?
That's what drew me in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drew me in. I have 48 years in, and for the first 25, almost 30 years, I was much more on the fundraising side. I wasn't yet ready to really out myself as a type 1. I was an actor. I was up for commercials. And the casting process is so distasteful anyway. I didn't want to give them another reason to say no to me. And so my friends knew. I mean, it was it was in the family. We all knew, but I never discussed it. And I found myself at a point in time where I don't think I consciously created this. I think I unconsciously created it. It serves a need for me, which is very much along the lines of what you've just described, which is why I tuned in to you so very quickly. There is something about making somebody feel better. And I've said about myself, it doesn't really make any difference if I'm on stage singing, because that's my same intent and purpose when I perform. So I thought, well, if I can take that energy and that part of me that isn't frightened by the lights and the stuff, and certainly I've talked before, and in my boomer life, there's been a lot of reinvention. I think that it's interesting in that I think we're the first generation who ever has really thought about the art of reinvention. And I mean, there's no more talk about that gold watch in 25 years. Maybe in certain places it still occurs, but not in my life or anybody that I know. So I never had that instinct that I had to stay with one thing. I think that my brain and my heart led me to sit in this chair. And I know you've experienced this and you've been at this longer than I know, but when you have somebody write to you or say to you, Riva, you have no idea what you've done for me, or Bonnie, it's the greatest payoff for me.
Yes.
That's my personal payoff.
Yes, that's the key. And as much as I love to write, and I'm a writer by trade, and the funny thing is, because I grew up extremely shy, I grew up so shy that people would joke with me and say, Riva, shut up, you're talking too much, because I never said anything. And now one of my greatest joys is speaking in front of people. I mean, I love to go out and give talks at health conferences and all of that. There's a inherent fun as a writer to put your thoughts and your words together in a way that is really pleasing and you get your ideas across. And there's a different kind of fun when you're actually in front of people and you're connecting with them right there, and you're getting the immediate feedback. I'm sure that's, like for any actor, performer, that immediate feedback.
Well, there's
It's
that
a
all love me,
drug.
love me, love me
Yes,
portion
it's
of
a
the
drug.
program. Give me more, love me, love me. Going back a second, I'm actually very sorry that I didn't get to the conference in Vancouver that you have just been honored for. Could you tell us a little bit about that and how that all came about?
Sure. So this is a conference that happens every 2 years. It's put on by the International Diabetes Federation, IDF. They actually sit in Belgium. And they have about 200 country members around the world, diabetes organizations, who are trying to create greater awareness and advocacy and education around diabetes. And so every other year they put on a conference called the World Congress. In December, it was in Vancouver, and I was honored to receive what they call their lecture award,
Isn't that great?
honored for education and advocacy. And what a lecture award entitles you to do is give a lecture.
Aren't you glad you didn't get the baby award?
I also got a framed picture. And so I gave a lecture about the work that I'm really deep into now, which is creating another way to work with patients, which I call a flourishing approach. So, and it was so enthusiastically received. And, the people there were 8,000 scientists, clinicians,
A warm and
diabetes
fuzzy group.
educators. So, these are the people in the field.
Right.
And so the idea in a nutshell, because I could talk about this forever, is most people see their physicians who, in the treatment of diabetes, basically look at the disease, look at what's not working, look at the numbers, and take a problem-solving approach. Like they want to help you fix what's broken, and it's kind of it's a coping approach. Let's help you cope, which already to me is a very negative-sounding word. So if you flip that and to sort of extend healthcare providers' repertoire of treatment approaches, I call it a flourishing approach. And a flourishing approach doesn't look at the problems. It looks at what's already working. What's the patient, the person with diabetes, already doing well? Well, let's honor them for that, praise them for that, and help them build on that. Let's look at where their strengths are and help them use their strengths and their skills. It's about building resilience and regarding people as whole and helping them go forward with diabetes in a much more positive way. And this came about because when I started working in diabetes, I interviewed almost 200 people with diabetes. Mm-hmm. And what I saw was there are people who are struggling, and there are lots of people who are doing well and living what I call a flourishing life. And we should be looking at how do they do that? The people who are living well with diabetes, present company, included, how do people do that? Let's learn from them and let's bring this to other people instead of constantly examining the problems and thinking we're going to find solutions by only looking at the problems.
I think that is a fabulous tangent to be able to take. The only concern that I have is that by nature, doctors aren't so fast to want to have any ideas really brought to them. They're going to tell you it's about their time, that they don't have time to do this. And I think it's such important information that it's up to each and every one of us once we get that idea of how one does, can, and will flourish. I think we need to keep the white coats out. That's just my opinion, because I do have an opinion here and there. I hate to cut us off. This has been wonderful, Riva. I hope that you'll come back on the show and let us know what's going on with you. Would you please, before we end this interview, please let our audience know how they can follow you and how they can get your books and how they can get a recommendation from your husband.
Thank you. So my website that I blog on is called diabetesstories.com. You can find me on the Huffington Post and all the books are available on Amazon. So if you just Google my name, you can find the books as well. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I will come back anytime.
Thank you, thank you.
And I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
Well, Riva, you take good care of yourself. And again, thanks for being on the show. Yes, that was Riva Greenberg, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Bonnie Sher Show. You can join in the conversation by following the hashtag BShareRadio on Twitter. And that's # BSHERRADIO. Coming up, shout out from the Soapbox, which is basically my take on who got it right and who should absolutely be ashamed. Let's go to break with a song that really hits home with me, and that is by the phenomenal Shirley Bassey, and it's her rendition of What About Today?
Bassey.
Really, what about today? What about Shirley Bassey? Thank you, and welcome back to the Bonnie Sher Show. Joining me in this segment is Danielle Hargenrader, a member of the T1D community from the great state of Pennsylvania. Welcome, Danielle. Hi, Danielle. Thank you for being with me today. Danielle, you live with type 1 diabetes. Would you share part of your story for us, please?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me, first of all.
My pleasure.
So I was diagnosed in 1991, coming up on my 25-year anniversary in September. I was 9 years old, and for me back then, I'm sure as many of us who have been in the club for quite some time did not have this wonderful online community that we have nowadays that is just a lifeline for many people. So it was just me and my mom and my dad. We had a very small, tight-knit family, and we just kind of got along the way we could with little help from the doctors, but not too much. We got, a pamphlet and a little bit of training in the hospital, but it wasn't very extensive. And we just kind of went about our business and figured things out as well as anybody could, and kind of got into a rhythm of things. And then about 3 years later, my father passed away very suddenly, all within a week. He had a very massive heart attack, quadruple bypass surgery, and never made it out. And how that kind of ties into my diabetes story is that, that was the day after my 12th birthday, puberty, hormones, and that kind of led into a very deep depression, which was fueled by a binge eating addiction. And I went from an average sized kid to up to 200 plus pounds by the time I was about 14 years old. And I spent the entirety of my teenage life over 200 pounds with an A1C over 13, with what I guess nowadays is referred to as diabulimia, where I was binge eating and not taking my insulin the way that I should. Back then I didn't know that there was even a name for it. Or
that anybody else was doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. I know I wasn't alone now, especially nowadays when I get to talk to so many people who have been through similar experiences, which is just such an amazing feeling to actually get to connect with other people who have been through the similar things that I have. And then, try to keep a very long story short, I changed my mind about what was and wasn't possible for my life through I used my brain because I was always a smart person. I always could get straight A's. That was one thing I knew I was good at. I wasn't so good at diabetes management, but I knew I could get good grades. So I studied and I used nutrition to my advantage. I went and got a degree in nutrition science, and through lots of practice and trial and error and kind of being willing to get back up after being knocked down time and time again, I came into my own through nutrition, and then I later on added physical fitness to my repertoire by going to personal training school. That's actually a picture of me in my personal training school. That's the school. It was actually a classroom and a gym. So we learned in the classroom and then took what we learned out into the gym immediately following. So it was a very hands-on 500-hour, 6-month course that changed my life. And I went from what I like to refer to as obese to athlete, and all while living with type 1 diabetes. And there's my Dexcom, which is a wonderful, fabulous piece of equipment that I am very grateful to have the opportunity to have.
Yeah, I think I read you've completed 30 days. Is this the first time you've ever been on a sensor?
No, I've actually had my Dexcom for, I want to say about 3 years or so now. I just decided that I really wanted to be transparent. I have clients and people who kind of ask me, how do I do this? And I say, I do it, just the same way everybody else does, but I wanted to show people, it's like, look, I did it around Christmas and New Year's, so I could show people that just like everyone else, I go way off track too.
Okay, so I must have missed that thing. I came in at like day 24, and I remember thinking, really, because I thought I was late to the party, because I was so resistant until I finally, I'm addicted. Okay, I'm telling the world I have an addiction, and it's to Dexcom. So I'm sorry for interrupting, but it's just such a fabulous asset that I think it needs all of the support it can get. Now, if we could get Congress to pass the bill allowing for Medicare to pay for these because it's a struggle.
Absolutely. And that's a whole other, thing. I think that should, the Dexcom continuous glucose monitor, or any glucose monitor, it's not the only one available. I think any glucose monitor should be mandatory equipment that is prescribed to anybody who lives with diabetes, because the fact is that it can and has saved people's lives. It is,
Absolutely.
throughout my teenage life, when I was out of control, I had 2 seizures in my sleep, where I passed out, I seized, I had to be taken to the hospital in ambulance. And if I would have, I don't know that Dexcom was available back then, but the point is that kind of thing still happens to other T1s. And if they had that Dexcom on, it could be the matter of, having a seizure or not. And I think it's something that should be, I kind of think it's absurd that it's not covered.
Well, to me, it's almost tantamount to that day that came when we first got test strips, because I go back to the days where you took your 5 drops of urine or 10 drops, it's been a long time, and you put it into a little tube and you threw a little chic pill into it and it changed colors for you.
Right.
So if the same thinking had gone on then, well, why do we need to pay for test strips? They can keep peeing in this little bottle and they can. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense even on a financial level.
No, it doesn't. That's the whole truth too. The amount of money, I'm big into looking into studies, and the amount of money that gets spent on urgent care hospital visits for people who have things like diabetic ketoacidosis or severe lows where they go into hypoglycemic comas. The amount of money spent on that is more than it would cost to cover everybody with getting a continuous glucose monitor. So I absolutely agree. It's insane.
So there's really I can't find any socially responsible reasoning behind that. I heard one ridiculous answer was because, quote, they didn't know how to code it. About medical coding every procedure. That's how doctors bill, is by medical procedure. And apparently there was this big go-round about they didn't know how, well, here's how you do it. You go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, code. See, I just coded it. Yeah. I don't know why it's taking all of this time and money, but in the meantime, it's awful. It's just, we know it's there. We know it's available. And we know what a great benefit this really is. It's probably the greatest thing that I've seen in my 48, almost 49 years now. And to have it taken away from me, I couldn't even imagine that. I like to take everything off once a week. It's the day that I keep changing the pump every 2 to 3 days, but there's one day where everything gets changed out and I rip everything out and I dance around the house. I'm free. I can do anything I want. But boy, oh boy, in the back of my mind is how fast can I get back onto my sensor again?
I totally agree. I'm right there with you. I don't even take everything off once a week. I leave my Dexcom on for like 21 days at a time, which I know you're not technically supposed to do.
Okay, well, if we're going to tell the truth on my show, then I'm going to tell you it's been 2 weeks. But just in case they're listening and I called that I've got a problem, it's only been 7 days.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You said something that really interests me at the very top of this segment when you were talking about the DOC. For people who don't know, that refers to the Diabetes Online Community. And for me, I didn't even know. I knew 2, maybe 3 other people through my life that had type 1.
Same here.
There were 2, and both were men. Really didn't liken myself to either of them in any way, so I didn't have that kind of support and had no idea what a valuable resource it is, because the truth of the matter is, I had to say it to my doctor the other day too. I said, look, you might be arguably the best endo in the world, but I'm going to tell you the one thing you're not, and that's a type 1 diabetic.
or a community.
But I mean,
Yes.
don't you believe that you really have to live with this? Can you explain to people what that angst is about, or what that delight over good numbers, or, I mean, it's a language, CGM.
Yeah.
We're our own little network here, and I would say maybe as high as 80% of what I read online questions within the community. I'm having this happen. Has that ever happened to you? And that's an opportunity I never had before.
Absolutely.
And I think also the dissemination of information, of new studies that are going on and are covered by the press. We then pick it up and put it into our blogs and alert the community to that. Um, there is no perfect anything, as I have found, and probably you have too. And if there's any downside, I find, to the posts on Facebook primarily, there are some people out there who are hammers. And when you're a hammer, the whole world looks like a bunch of nails, right? And
Sure.
they
Absolutely.
take you to task and command you. I will not believe that. You must believe the way I believe because we're right and you're not. And well, good. I'm really happy you feel that way, but try not. I mean, I think it just dilutes and harms what we want to eventually have, which is enough power within us to get things done. I mean, as opposed to, sitting online and saying, oh, how can I make their life more difficult today because they didn't give me a like or a share? Please, that's Facebook for kindergartners.
Yeah. I mean, for that, I see it as like, in general, I see people are people. There are going to be people out there that want to help build everybody up, and there are going to be people out there that want to bring everybody down, kind of that misery loves company mentality. And I think that's going to be in any community, diabetes
You're
community,
probably right. I
no
would
matter
accept
what
that.
community there is. So for me, I just kind of, just the way I would, interacting with people day to day, you take everything with a grain of salt. I kind of like, if something is said that you really love, that you feel like it resonates with you, then, give it a like, give it a share, or don't. It doesn't matter. But then if somebody says something nasty, for me, I will walk away. I just don't have, I'm a very positive person. I
Mm-hmm.
find that my energy levels are very affected by other people's negativity. So if I feel somebody that's putting off a lot of nastiness and things like that, I just remove myself from the situation. It's not worth it to me to engage. And I think that's a big thing for everyone who's involved in any online community, which would be, Facebook is an online community,
Of course.
that, there's going to be negative people no matter where you go. So you have to be kind of willing to say ahead of time, you know what? I'm just not really that interested in engaging with
Right.
people
I
who
don't
are,
want to play.
I don't want to, I'm leaving this sandbox, I'm going
Yeah, yeah.
away, and
But
that's it. Bye. That's it.
I
That
do.
easy.
I think that luckily, and maybe my numbers are a little off. Luckily, there is this wonderful 80%, and those who choose to be less than positive and less than helpful. I don't take them to task on it because what you've said is exactly the way it is. I mean, people are people, and you're going to find lovely ones, and then there are the ones who are, well, not so lovely. And I don't think it's my job to out them. I think they do a real fine job on that. It's just, I don't like time wasting. I like it. I want everything now. I mean, that's why I played that song. What about today? What's going to happen in 10 years? I can't relate to what's going to happen in 10 years. I can relate to me today. And this day started with a blood glucose of 41 about 4 o'clock this morning. I slept right through the CGM alarm.
Wow.
I was that out. And I happened to have a diabetes alert animal, little Sammy Douglas Jr., all 9.5 pounds of him. And he alerts me. He takes that little muzzle, keeps poking me, and then he'll get up under my arm, and I'll start flipping my arm up and down. So for me, between the CGM and Sammy, I'm here doing the show today.
Yeah, that's really important. And I was going to say, I always appeal a little tip for people who do have the, wonderful Dexcom. If you do have a heavy sleeping pattern, which me, I sleep very lightly. My cat meows and I'm awake. But you can take the receiver and you can put the receiver when you go to sleep in a glass, just like a pint glass, an empty one, and the noise that it makes will be magnified. Like,
who knew?
So you can make it louder, even though you can put it on its loudest and then just stick the receiver in a pint glass and it'll just be like beep beep. It's really loud. So that's something that a tip that I share with people, because I know a lot of people are really heavy sleepers and they do sleep through the Dexcom alarm. So.
Yeah, I slept through the earthquakes, if that gives you any idea. I figure I put out enough energy when my eyes are open. So basically I have two speeds. I have full tilt boogie and drop over. That's how I roll.
Hey, got to do what works for you. Yeah, I sleep well, but it doesn't take much to wake me up.
I'm a
little
very deep
vibration.
sleeper.
Yeah, tiny little noise wakes me right up. But for the diabetes community thing, I find, I've really just become involved in it myself heavily in the last few years. And overall, I'd say, like you said, I'd even say more than 80% of people have been super receptive, super welcoming, open-minded. I mean, even groups that I join, most of the admins will say, no negative, no tag. If somebody puts a post and you say something negative, you're going to get booted out of the group. I think most people have that mentality of, hey, we're all here. We all are people. We all have our views. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing, which is live our best lives with diabetes, whatever that means for us, so that when we come out into the community, we're not necessarily as afraid of being judged or, having something nasty said, because most people are saying, you know what, okay, I don't necessarily agree with that person, but at the same time, maybe there's something I could add to their question that might help them, but it's not, I won't try to force my, way of living on them. And I've really found that very supportive, kind people 99% of the time. I mean, every once in a while there's a bad egg, but that's just life.
So easy for you people in Philadelphia. You're in Philadelphia, aren't you?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Most people think the East Coast is nasty, but
not when you're from the East Coast. I just landed here in the left coast. I don't know how it happened, but here I am. Would you please take a minute, and for anybody, and I can't believe there's anybody watching my show who doesn't know who you are, but just in case, would you please, puffin stuff, would you please tell our listeners how they can follow you, see you, learn about your ideas in terms of fitness and diet and all of those wonderful things that you're putting out there onto the planet?
Sure, absolutely. My main website is diabetesdominator.com, and I have that's a picture of the photo of my book. My book is available on Amazon. It is called Unleash Your Inner Diabetes Dominator, and it's funny because the subtitle is, using the power of choice and community to completely change your relationship with diabetes for the better. So I'm always about teaching people how to kind of do some inner work, because I had to do a lot of inner work to come from the one side of the fence that I was on to the other. And really, it was all about changing my relationship with my diabetes, because I think all of us are in a relationship with our diabetes. And the more positive the relationship is, the more, the more often we'll see numbers that we like, and the more often we'll feel empowered and confident about our decisions. So diabetesdominator.com. We'll link to all my social media, I believe, from that site. I have a YouTube interview series I do very similar to you, which I think is amazing. And that's why I love talking to other people that do this, where I interview people who are thriving with diabetes. And also on my website, there's a free ebook. I like to try to put out as much free content as possible, actionable items that people can start working on improving their day-to-day lives right away without having to necessarily purchase anything. That can be downloaded right from my website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, I'm everywhere. But I believe there are links to all of those on my website at diabetesdominator.com.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me today, Danielle. If any of our fellow type 1s would like to occupy the guest host chair with me on a future episode of the Bonnie Sher Show, it's really very simple. All you need to do is write to me, and you can do so at bonniesher.com. Danielle, take good care of yourself. Again, it's just been a joy to have you here. Keep up your good work, and thank you for all that you are doing for the community.
I appreciate the opportunity, and thank you for doing what you do. Very much appreciated.
Well, I hated to end that segment, but now it is time for me to step upon my soapbox. First of all, I'd like to give a shout out to the state of Texas. I know you think I'm surprised by saying this, but don't be, because I'm going to tell you why. Basically, to the state of Texas and to that impaneled grand jury and the members for indicting the two anti-abortion activists for their roles in creating videos which attacked Planned Parenthood. What happened was the jurors actually found no evidence of illegal activity by Planned Parenthood, and that's in Gulf Coast, Texas, but charged instead, and I quote, prohibition of the purchase and sale of human organs and tampering with a governmental record. Outstanding. Now, for my shout down. Oh my goodness, but shame on Governor Chris Christie. It's too unimaginable. When Christie was in New Hampshire and he was campaigning there, he was attending a town hall meeting, and one of the women raised her hand and asked him, why was he, at that moment in time, why was he campaigning in New Hampshire as opposed to being at home, taking care of his state and the people who lived in his state, and actually thought that he should be surveying the damage that was caused by the coastal flooding down in Cape May County, which is still reeling from Hurricane Sandy. So here's what he said. I don't know what you expect me to do. You want me to go down there with the mop? Okay, if you have an opinion, visit my blog at bonniesher.com/blog and sound off. Well, that's our show for today. I hope you'll return next week for another 50 minutes worth of trips through the land of Bonnie, through the land of boomers, through the life of celebrities, and of course, our T1D community. Until then, please visit bonniesher.com and follow the number 1 Bonnie Sher on Twitter, and like the Bonnie Sings Lena fan page on Facebook. I again want to thank today's guests for sharing the ride, and a special note of thanks to Corey Bone of Crown and Anchor Jewelry. Today he has outfitted me with this beautiful, these stones are a combination of citrine and amethyst, and it's called, here, I'm trying to help you see it, watch this. Here it is. Can you see the colors? Can you see the colors waving through it? So yeah, it's amethyst and citrine, which is the compost here as well. And this has little pyrite beads holding it all together. This is another one of the fabulous looks from Corey Bone, Crown and Anchor. If you would like to have a look, and maybe one of these pieces of jewelry could wind up on you, all you have to do is go to bonniesher.com and find his link, and go ahead and let him know that you heard about him here on the Bonnie Sher Show. Well, for my friends, old and new, most of you know the incredible role that Sammy Davis Jr. had in my life in terms of my career and my upbringing. So if there is a chance that there are speakers up in heaven, well then, Sammy, this one's for you. Take us out.
Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong, I gotta be me. I gotta be me. What else can I be but what I am? I want to live, not merely survive. And I won't give up this dream of life that keeps me alive. I gotta be me. I gotta be me. The dream that I see makes me what I am. That faraway prize, a world of success, is waiting for me if I heed the call. I won't settle down, won't settle for less, as long as there's a chance that I can have it all. I'll go it alone, that's how it must be. I can't be right for somebody else if I'm not right for me. I gotta be free. I've gotta be free. Daring to try to do it or die. I've gotta be me. I'll go it alone. That's how it must be. I can't be right for somebody else if I'm not right for me.